final day of life.
Final.
Final.
Okay.
Well,
Just had some
yep.
streaming issues.
Where's your ROV?
Nest. Some kind of trigger or file fish.
On top of a minute or so ago, down in the canyon itself. Looks. So we've got a lot of sand, and
We've got something slightly larger. Oh, it is swimming with its pectoral fins there.
yeah, it's an incredible.
Following, I've lost them now.
Halimeda beds that distributed around this area, and probably the source of a lot of this sandy substrate.
Not as a sort of just an octocoral.
The way it's limped over, I would say, probably. We'll see. We can get an idea.
Yeah, I am losing hope for Aquapora now.
Yeah.
Finally.
It's an octocoral. It's too red.
Yeah, and we're kind of once again on this just very unconsolidated, loose substrate. So
Yeah, it's probably quite unlikely viewers.
sorry, guys.
Yeah, so we're seeing like shadows.
Size, yeah. So it's just all the bits and bobs sticking up. Yeah, just wherever's
Fine, yeah.
easy to explore.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a... No, you say there.
5 meters.
Yeah, so this is a meadow of Halimeda, and even though it looks barren, in fact the seafloor is covered in this green algae, and it's a very, very important part of coral reef ecosystems because in fact it's very productive. They have fronds which cement into the seafloor, and then as these little things they bud off, you can see they bud off like branches, and obviously they die, but they're calcareous in that they have a skeleton of limestone, aragonite, the same type of limestone that coral is, and it's just very, very productive. And in fact, Marty McNeil, who's on board for this voice, she's done a PhD on these. Just behind the Ribbon Reefs where we are now, not even just a few kilometres away, there are hundreds of square kilometres right across the northern Great Barrier Reef. These meadows of Halimeda have built up through time and have created these quite extensive, deep reefal habitats. And I say reefal, but most of the calcium carbonate or limestone in them is not made from coral, it's actually made from this green algae, and they basically, those little flakes die, they break down and form these really great mounds, really extensive mounds. We call them bioherms, so reef forming organisms, but actually it's not made from coral. It's extensive that they can form their own little reefs.
You can see from even in that last shot there are fishes making their home amongst this.
That's right. They're an important ecosystem.
So, yeah. That's even providing structure and habitat for certain species of fishes.
So the Halimeda combined the sediment and actually stabilise it. So that's one thing. And it's not always just Halimeda, but you get other kinds of algae growing in amongst it, like Caulerpa, which is another really important reef algae. And we call these meadows, the living, up to about 10-15 metres thick of Halimeda sediment that's built up over thousands of years. And they create these vast fields of bioherms. These bioherms are really strange looking things. They're about 200 metres across and they're donut shaped. And when we first saw them in the LiDAR, and we're going to bring Marty in here to talk about this. So talk about the bioherms a bit, Marty.
I don't know how much more there is to say, actually, Rob. You've given a very good commentary there.
Talk about how strange they look.
So the Halimeda bioherms that we're talking about, or that Rob's been describing, what can I say? They're really huge mound-like structures that are sitting up on the continental shelf, probably about, only 2 kilometres landward from where we're sitting right now. And the strangeness about them is the shape of them. So they form these circular mounds, but they're not mounded up in a positive relief mound. They're actually sort of hollow centred in the middle of the mound. So when we look at the bathymetric maps, they look like donuts. So the shapes of them looks like vast fields of crest. So these are really big features, and the field of donuts, degrees of latitude in the northern Great Barrier Reef, from about 10 degrees in the north, right at towards the tip of, which again is not too far from where we are now, although I'm talking on the outer continental shelf, so not near the mainland at all, out near the Ribbon Reefs where we are now. And they lie on the seafloor at from about 50 metres depth up to about 30 metres water depth. So the total build-up of sediment there can be up to about 20 metres thick on the outside edges of the donuts. And of course, in the donut hollows, it's only a few metres thickness of sediment. And the substrate that underlies the Halimeda bioherms that the sediment is built up on top of is actually the Pleistocene aged remnant Great Barrier Reef that was living and growing, 120,000 years ago, which is now fossil limestone. And so these Halimeda bioherms have been growing and accreting on the continental shelf throughout the geological period that we call the Holocene, which started about 12,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. So earlier on this dive, we've been talking about collecting rocks from 130 metres and 110 metres because those were paleo sea level levels, where the sea level was at during the last ice age. And then at the end of the last ice age, glaciers and continental ice sheets melted, sea level rose. And as that sea level started to rise and it started to flood the continental shelf, where we are right now, and that provided conditions such that the Halimeda could start growing and these bioherms started forming. So over the past 10 to 11,000 years, we've built up 20 metres thickness of Halimeda sediment. And on the top of that sediment is a living veneer of live Halimeda meadow, not dissimilar to what we're looking at now, although in parts it would be a lot thicker and more lush than what we're seeing now. And there's a whole community in there. There's a different species of Halimeda and lots of other types of macroalgae, caulerpa, all in there as well. And I think, as the guys here were discussing earlier, that provides habitat for a whole bunch of other invertebrates and other animals that can utilise that space as well. Yeah, so I mean, the geologists that have been studying the Great Barrier Reef have known about these Halimeda bioherms or banks for quite some time. There was quite a bit of work done in the 1980s out here in the Great Barrier Reef, and we've got seismic profiles and, fortunately for me, a whole suite of sediment cores that were collected back in the day by what was then the Bureau of Mineral Resources, but what is now Geoscience Australia, which is the team that's out here on this Visioning the Coral Sea expedition. And those Halimeda sediment cores have been very carefully stored and curated down at Geoscience Australia in Canberra, which is lucky for me because that's the material that I've been able to access and sample from and utilise for my PhD project. So if we didn't have that legacy material in storage for scientists to continue using well into the future, I wouldn't have a project. I'd have a very different project. And it just speaks to the value of this material that's been collected from the Great Barrier Reef over decades of research by different scientific teams. So it's of value at the time that it's collected, and it continues to be of value to other research groups and scientists for decades to come, and that's what we hope to get out of our expedition as well. All the sampling that we're doing and the mapping and data that we're acquiring obviously is hugely important and valuable to us, but hopefully it will be of use to many other scientists and groups for years to come into the future as well.
Hey, Marty, how many species of Halimeda are there? See, there in that shot just there, you can see at least two different...
So there's at least 2 or 3 different species of Halimeda that we're seeing in the shot now. So on the Great Barrier Reef, or in this northern section, as far as I'm aware, there's either 11 to 14 different species of Halimeda, and that just depends on the taxonomy classifications that are always kind of changing and being updated. So there's quite a few different species of Halimeda. And I guess, well, certainly from my sedimentological perspective, they can broadly be divided into kind of 2 groups, and that would be the type that likes to attach itself to a hard substrate. So we call that lithophytic, litho meaning rock. So it's a rock-dwelling Halimeda, and we see Halimeda everywhere on the reef, in reef environments, up on the shallow reef. Scuba divers and snorkelers would see it prolifically. It's everywhere, attaching itself in and amongst all the little nooks and crannies and crevices of the coral. And so that would be the lithophytic types of Halimeda. And then the other type is what we call samophytic, which is sand-dwelling Halimeda, and it has a sort of a fleshy holdfast, so not really roots. They're not true roots like a seagrass or anything like that, because it's an algae. And so it uses that holdfast to secure itself down into soft sediment. So from my perspective, the Halimeda that is forming these broad, vast meadows and building up bioherms is the samophytic type of Halimeda. So it has this holdfast that it uses to secure itself into the sediment, which the sediment is what it has produced itself, it's its skeleton. So it plays this role of sort of binding the sediment and stabilising it, which also helps to contribute towards this build-up. Yeah, we're just looking at this. Yeah, we're just coming up to a bit of a rise in the background there. I'm not sure whether we have time and energy to head towards that, but
It's actually going to be a drop-off.
oh, okay, it's going to be a drop-off. Yeah, so as we continue on this voyage and this expedition, I think later on in the week or perhaps early next week, we do intend to head back out onto the Queensland Plateau to the platform reefs out there that we started to visit on leg 1. And I do expect that when we get out there, we will see much more Halimeda. I do expect that we will see meadows of the samophytic types of Halimeda. We can see that on the vertical faces, on the vertical walls that hanging down like curse is interesting that we're just coming up to now in the dive.
Oh, no, I'm just saying I have to go to the peak of this.
Oh, sorry, J. Rod said he has to go to the peak. Thought he was giving us the wind-up.
Drowned reef kind of. Yeah, looking at it, the depth to it. You know, these are not long, necessarily long. There can be clumps
Slightly
There can be clumps of pinnacles.
You can move them
Yeah,
a little bit
yeah.
or have them pay out.
Yeah, so those little...
Yeah, we've seen them before on this. Yeah, most of the time we're seeing this kind of thing, a series of pinnacles, sort of along about the same depth.
This is like a mini pinnacle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really diverse.
Yeah, it's amazing what a bit of topography does.
Yeah, very nice.
Yes, Tom Bridge is always saying, we talk about the drowned reefs,
Yeah.
but they're drowned only in the sense that they've stopped accreting and, otherwise that's the habitat for all kinds of other marine life, which fringe it. We have this quite a nice ecosystem here, lots of fish,
Lots
and
of different
beautiful gorgonians.
Yeah,
Right, it's a beauty.
Seahorse country.
It's a lot of seahorse country when you scuba dive. And yeah, they're all over. Have a look at the one on the left-hand side. This big. So there's on this one here, yellow branches and purple fronds there. That's a beauty.
Similar habitat.
Yeah, jump in. Look at those fish.
You happy to keep going for a couple of minutes, J-Rod? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, can we just have a little bit of a
Scuba diving?
look around? Yeah, that's just so pretty.
So yeah, we're just on the top now of this sort of pinnacle bommy on the edge of the shelf,
Like
really.
70 metres.
Still at about 70 metres, but you've just got this abrupt bit of diversity of fishes is probably the most, I guess, we've seen in one spot on this dive.
You see that race?
Yeah, so these are just
In the middle here.
a very large black coral.
Wild branch.
He's in here like a
Let's relax on
like a flash.
Tentacles. See, wonder if there's a look for a clown. Look for an enemy fish in it. Oh no,
Is
are
that
those an enemy?
Galaxia?
No, we're going to
Goniopora?
They're going to tentacle. Those are the tentacles.
That's an alveopora, I think, or it's 12. Tentacles, I think it's Goniopora, it's 24, it's alveopora, or might be that way.
Right. But it's a
It's a hexagon.
it's hexagon. The tentacles. Oh, the ports. Really.
This is
Just the coral of the day.
We need this whole colony. This looks like the new genus that we just described.
Need to hand it to someone in the banana.
Hold on, let's take a zoomed in. So we only found it in Kimby Bay in Papua New Guinea, and
Zoom in so much, I'll come in a little
Okay.
bit closer for you.
yeah,
Like, center up the camera a little bit.
which way is Kimby Bay? And we described the new genus, but we've got these branches coming. I mean, they're not really coming in whorls, like from one point on a branch. It's certainly weird. It looks like, and
What's the name of the genus? Tell us.
it's
everybody.
Blastopathes, and it has one species
So
called
far.
Medusa. Is closely related to Blastopathes, so this could be another undescribed genus. The way that the branches are coming,
I'm coming right here. Go ahead and you've got all the movement you want here.
all right, I need to focus. So it's on.
It's like all up wild. I might have to bring the camera back for you.
It's on auto. It's on auto. Okay, good. But it's on. It's so.
How's that Medusa like? It's a structural form. isn't it?
Yeah, it's so complex and messy.
Can you get a look at the basal plate?
It's a large basal plate.
It's
Yeah.
really irregular as well. Like
It's got branches all over. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it could be related to. It would fall into the family Antipathidae.
yeah.
We would probably put it in the related. I don't know. We're just gonna have to get a sample.
I know you do it if it's the last thing that we're collecting.
Let's do it.
All right, we're going for it.
And we do species.
Do you want a porter? I got you over here for your
At 65 meters.
right now.
Oh,
Yeah. So just go grab that base from up above, like come up some up
Yeah,
down on that,
yeah.
and then we'll try to bring it in.
It's just chaos, right?
This is what the top of just amazing how we're in that barren field. Well, not barren, Halimeda meadow. And then suddenly this just rises up and it's just
Structure.
I came back to the
well structure and also the interaction between the currents that you must get hitting this thing from coming up deep from the other
first one you've
side
seen?
here, whipping.
Some things are just more important than Macropora.
Just point out to J.R. so he knows for the future.
Yeah.
yeah. So
It might actually be animal right now, but it's in the ballpark.
Yeah, if we search around here a little bit more, maybe we'd find it. This?
Red with white dot.
Yeah, the Cargonia,
That's called
essentially.
If in doubt.
If in doubt.
They're species, so it'd be new to science. Nothing's 100%. It could just be a really large Antipathes.
You're looking really good and set.
And so the reason why we're collecting this whole colony, it's large, but if it is a new species to science, then you have to have the whole colony to describe it because we don't know if there's variations near the base that you would otherwise miss. So you would describe the species incorrectly, and then you would.
Oh, it's really dawn.
Yeah, it's right on the base.
Yeah, I'm trying to you should be good.
So it could be,
Can you give me a little zip, please?
yeah.
Trying to keep you from rotating.
That basal plate is just solid looking, isn't it?
Oh yeah. You're gonna have to twist and break it.
Yeah, look how I guess it's just a very thin layer of flesh, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was it kindness that bit?
The skeleton.
The base-
Yeah,
the
the
base
whole
plate.
thing. Yeah.
So where it's like grown out and attached to the roof.
Oh, sorry. Somewhere in the middle area, so it can go to the floor.
We do it outside. We might do it outside.
Needs to be cool.
In 3-4, you've got an like a whip coral and a leptoceros.
Oh, it has to go in 3-4 if it's going to go anywhere. Yeah. I mean, can you just keep it clamped and bring it up, or it's unlikely?
It'll I can do it with the lid in the bow box, so
Okay.
it'll be a bigger.
Like that.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything. What is this in BioBox 2?
There's
It's all the bags. I know there's not.
there's all coral in there.
And we'll them.
Doesn't matter.
All right, 3 and 4 coming up, or at least 3. So we can just 3.
I think you can't come up with it because on the outside.
That's what you've got in 3 and 4.
It's such a one little
Yeah.
focal point that we're holding on by,
Yeah, you might.
that with the rest of us coming in.
Right.
So if we go with what Chris is doing right there,
Just clamp it down.
give me a second. All right, so when he comes in
So
right there,
weird.
I'm gonna. We'll take that away. Thrust it a little bit.
I'm checking out.
It's like trying to repack a Christmas tree into its box.
Oh, what you had was
I'm gonna have to drive with this thing on my roof like a Christmas tree.
Be like that National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Yeah, it's the biggest tree.
You can get that base up here on the corner.
Yeah.
You can get, just go outward, just touch more. Hit the cords just a little bit. All right. Hold that. Ready, Chris?
Yep.
All right, box 3 coming forward.
So the branches are not vertically directed there.
Ready to close.
They're coming out and up.
Anyway. You got it?
Yeah,
Which is,
coming
you know, it's
forward. So start working your way up.
Alright. Just a little bit more in there?
I got it. Fine.
That works. Yeah, it's really hard. It'll be hard to break it on. So.
Sebastian needs a haircut.
Take a screenshot of that.
No.
So we have a picture of that.
Yeah, it'll be in there.
Okay.
Do you want another one?
If you got one, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. That's a nice little wing on the end of the day.
Just draw this up.
Ridiculous.
New genus.
Oh, I don't know.
The other one is definitely. You had described the new genus.
Something like that, but this is different. For sure, it's different.